The soft hum of air conditioners and the glint of glass walls made Prestige Couture, Victoria Island, feel like a different world. Inside, rich clients strolled casually, their laughter mixing with the scent of imported perfumes. But for Emily Johnson, it was another long day of being invisible. At 24, Emily's life was far from glamorous. She lived in a modest one-room flat in Aja, surviving paycheck to paycheck. Her wardrobe consisted of neatly ironed Ankara skirts, plain blouses, and a cheap wig she cared for like it was real hair. Still, she carried herself with dignity, never letting the world see how tired she was. But inside the boutique, Susan Blake, the manager, made sure Emily never forgot her place. "Emily, why are you still standing there? Go get my coffee. And next time, try not to look like a charity case," Susan sneered, flipping her expensive weave. The other senior staff giggled. They knew Emily wouldn't fight back. She never did. She needed this job too much. As the day dragged on, Emily found herself folding luxury gowns while her colleagues attended to high-profile customers. She heard their whispers. "That girl doesn't belong here." "She's just a glorified cleaner." But Emily stayed quiet. Her mother always said, "Dignity is not in what you wear, it's in how you treat others." Then something unusual happened. The boutique's glass doors swung open and an elderly man shuffled in. His clothes were worn out, his shoes had visible holes, and his hair was messy. The staff wrinkled their noses in disgust. "Sir, you're lost. This is Prestige Couture, not a roadside stall," one of them snapped. The old man smiled, his eyes twinkling. "I just want to look around." Susan stormed forward, her heels clacking aggressively. "We don't serve people like you. Kindly leave." The other staff laughed cruelly, already filming discreetly for a potential viral clip. But Emily's heart ached. She knew what it felt like to be looked down on, to be treated as less than human. She walked past her sneering colleagues and approached the old man gently. "Sir, would you like some water?" she asked softly. The man's eyes lit up, surprised by her kindness. "That would be nice." Ignoring the whispers and judgmental glares, Emily brought him a chilled glass of water. She even helped him sit down comfortably. "Take your time, sir. If you need anything, let me know." The old man smiled at her, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Good things happen to good people, my dear. Remember that." Emily didn't understand why his words touched her so deeply, but they did. Moments later, the old man surprised everyone. "Help me pick out 10 of your best outfits," he said to Emily. The room went silent. The staff giggled behind their hands. "He must be senile," someone whispered. Susan crossed her arms, watching with amusement. But Emily didn't hesitate. She walked him through the boutique, carefully selecting suits, silk shirts, and designer shoes that would fit him perfectly. She adjusted collars, matched ties, even recommended shoes. The staff snickered, thinking she was wasting her time. After an hour, Emily proudly presented the selection. "Sir, I think these will look amazing on you." The old man clapped his hands happily. "I'll take them all." Susan rolled her eyes, already waiting for the punchline. "That will be in 25 million, sir," Emily said with a hopeful smile. The old man patted his pockets and chuckled. "Oh dear, I don't have money on me." The boutique exploded with laughter. Susan strutted forward, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Emily, you truly are foolish. You thought this beggar could afford even a button here." Emily's face flushed with embarrassment, but she didn't get angry. Instead, she turned to the old man with a gentle smile. "It's okay, sir. Don't worry about it." Susan was livid. "You are ruining our brand's image. You're fired. Get out of my store." Tears stung Emily's eyes, but she held her head high, picked up her worn handbag, and walked out silently. She didn't know why, but as she walked down that busy Victoria Island street, a strange peace filled her heart. Something about that old man's words stayed with her. What Emily didn't know was that the man she had just helped was Edward Adams, founder of Adams Lux Group, one of the wealthiest men in Nigeria, and her simple act of kindness had just changed her life forever. The sun hung lazily over Ikoyi as Edward Adams stepped out of his taxi, his tattered shoes stepping onto the marble driveway of the Adams estate. The guard saluted him, unaware he had just been thrown out of his own boutique. His face, though calm, was lined with thoughts. Inside, the estate glittered with opulence, grand chandeliers, gold-trimmed railings, and oil paintings of the Adams lineage. But Edward's mind was on Emily Johnson, the young woman who had given him kindness when no one else did. He found his grandson, David Adams, in his sleek office, going over contracts. "Grandfather, where have you been?" "You've been gone for hours," David asked, concern lacing his voice. "I went to test hearts today, my boy," Edward said with a soft smile. "And I met a rare soul." David listened intently as Edward narrated the entire boutique ordeal, Susan's insults, the staff's mockery, and most importantly, the girl who gave him water and spent her last money on a taxi fare for a beggar. David's expression darkened. "They mocked you in my store?" His fists clenched. "Susan Blake works for me. They all do." Edward's hand gently touched David's arm. "But the girl, Emily, she is different. She must be rewarded." David's sharp features softened. He called for his assistant, Michael Brown. "Get me the security footage from Prestige Couture and find that girl. I want to know everything about her." Moments later, David sat in front of a large screen, watching the footage. He saw Emily, unfazed by the insults, helping Edward with sincerity. He watched her give away her last cash. She wasn't acting. Her kindness was genuine. David leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing. "Find her, Michael. Bring her to me, and treat her with respect." Meanwhile, Emily walked aimlessly down the busy streets of Lekki Phase 1. Her heart was heavy, but she refused to cry. She had lost her job and her last bit of money, but she still carried her mother's words in her heart. "Don't let the world change your heart, Emily." As she neared a bus stop, a sleek black Range Rover Autobiography pulled up beside her. The tinted windows rolled down, and a man in a sharp navy blue suit leaned out. "Miss Emily Johnson?" the man said politely. Emily's heart skipped. "Yes?" "I'm Michael Brown, personal assistant to Mr. David Adams, CEO of Adams Lux Group. My employer would like to meet you." Emily blinked. It had to be a joke. Why would Nigeria's most powerful fashion mogul want to see her? "I think you have the wrong person," she replied cautiously. Michael smiled. "No, ma'am. Mr. Adams is expecting you. You'll be safe." Emily hesitated. This had to be a scam. But something about Michael's calm demeanor and the official seal on the car's door made her pause. She took a deep breath. What did she have to lose? "All right," she whispered, stepping into the car. As the car drove through the bustling streets, Emily clutched her handbag tightly, her mind racing. Was this about the boutique? Had she offended someone important? But when the car turned into Ikoyi, her thoughts stilled. The Adams estate loomed ahead, a mansion she had only seen on magazine covers. Uniformed staff opened the car door as Emily stepped out, feeling completely out of place. She smoothed her simple blouse, wishing she had something more elegant. Michael guided her through the marble-floored entrance hall. At the top of the grand staircase stood a tall, impeccably dressed man. His dark suit was tailored to perfection, and his sharp, observant eyes locked onto Emily the moment she appeared. "Miss Emily Johnson," he said smoothly, descending the staircase. "I'm David Adams." Emily's throat went dry. This was the man Susan often daydreamed about. The man every woman in Lagos fantasized about marrying. And now he stood before her. "I'm... Emily," she managed, her voice barely a whisper. David's lips curled into a knowing smile. "I know." Before she could process the surreal moment, a familiar voice echoed from the ground floor. "There she is." Emily turned to see the old man from the boutique, Edward Adams, now looking regal in a flowing agbada, his eyes twinkling. "You?" Emily gasped. "You live here?" Edward chuckled. "Oh, yes, my dear. I am not as poor as I seemed, am I?" The room filled with a warmth Emily couldn't describe, but nothing could prepare her for what Edward said next. "David, this is the kind of woman you should marry." Emily laughed nervously. "No, no, sir, that's not—" But when she turned to David, she froze. He wasn't laughing, and he wasn't mocking her. He was watching her with a silent, curious intensity that made her heart race. At that moment, Emily's life had already shifted, even though she didn't know it yet. For the next few days, Emily Johnson found herself in a world she never imagined. The Adams estate was overwhelming. Polished marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and staff who bowed every time they passed her. Yet despite the luxury, Emily remained grounded, often helping the maids fold tablecloths or sharing small jokes with the kitchen staff. But the calm was short-lived. One afternoon, the estate's peace was shattered by the roar of a red convertible speeding through the gates. The sleek car screeched to a halt, and out stepped a woman in towering designer heels. Her sharp sunglasses covered half her face, but the sneer on her lips was unmistakable. Her name was Vanessa Clark. Vanessa had been part of the Adams inner circle for years. As a senior manager at Adams Lux Group, she had always seen herself as the future Mrs. Adams. In her mind, it was only a matter of time before David would propose. After all, she had built the image, always present at family functions, always perfectly styled, always close to his mother, Margaret Adams. And now this nobody from Aja was ruining everything. "Leo!" Vanessa's voice rang through the mansion with fake sweetness. David, adjusting his cufflinks in the lounge, barely lifted his head. "Vanessa." Vanessa's eyes immediately flicked to Emily, who was quietly sitting with Edward Adams, learning how to play chess. Vanessa's gaze turned icy. "And who is this?" she asked, approaching with a forced smile. Before Emily could respond, Edward's cheerful voice cut through. "This is Emily, my dear guest." Vanessa's laugh was sharp and mocking. "Guest? In this mansion? Oh, how things have changed." Turning to David, she asked in a tone dripping with venom, "Leo, who is she really? A maid? Or perhaps a special friend?" Emily's hands clenched. The insult was clear. But before she could defend herself, David stood up, his presence instantly silencing the room. "She is none of those things," David said firmly. "She is our guest, and you will show her respect." Vanessa froze. David's tone was different, cold, authoritative, protective. Not the indifferent man she used to toy with. But Vanessa quickly recovered, flipping her hair back. "Respect?" she echoed with a fake laugh. "Leo, open your eyes. She's poor. She doesn't belong here." David's jaw tightened. "And yet, she is here." The room was tense. Vanessa's face twisted in frustration, but she knew better than to push him further in front of Edward. Instead, she gave Emily a scathing look and muttered, "Enjoy it while it lasts." As she stormed out, Edward watched her leave with a knowing smile. "A storm is coming, my dear Emily," he said gently. "But storms pass. Integrity doesn't." That evening, Vanessa was seething in her apartment. She had spent years positioning herself to be the Adams family's future daughter-in-law. She tolerated the shallow socialites, pretended to be Margaret Adams's loyal follower, and carefully crafted her public image. And now some boutique assistant had dared to threaten all of it? No, Vanessa thought. She wouldn't lose to a market girl. She grabbed her phone and made a call to one of her media contacts at Nigel Cider, a notorious gossip blog. "I have a story for you," Vanessa purred. "The Adams heir has a new side chic, from boutique errand girl to gold-digging secretary. Make sure it trends." Meanwhile, back at the Adams estate, Emily sat quietly in the garden with David and Edward. The night air was calm, but Emily's heart was uneasy. Why did she hate me so much? "She doesn't even know me," Emily asked, more to herself. David's voice was calm, but his eyes betrayed a storm. "Vanessa is a woman who values appearance over substance. She's never known how to lose." Edward chuckled softly. "Don't worry, my dear. The right people always see through the noise." But deep down, Emily knew this was only the beginning. The whispers, the insults, they would get louder. The world was watching, waiting for her to fail. But she had something Vanessa didn't, an unshakable dignity. What Emily didn't expect was that her next challenge would come with an unexpected offer that would change her life forever. The next morning, Emily Johnson found herself standing at the grand entrance of Adams Lux Group Towers, Lagos Island. The towering glass building reflected the skyline, gleaming with power and prestige. She clutched her simple handbag, her nerves bubbling beneath her calm expression. Today was her first day as David Adams's personal secretary. Inside the lobby, employees in sharp designer suits moved briskly. The air was filled with the tapping of heels and murmurs of high-level meetings. But as Emily stepped in, a chilling hush fell over the room. Eyes followed her, lips curled into mocking smirks. At the reception desk, a woman in a tight black dress eyed her up and down. "You must be Emily," she said, a half-smile tugging her lips. "Yes," Emily replied politely. The woman's smile widened in amusement. "So you're the one who bagged the secretary position." Before Emily could respond, whispers filled the air. "I heard she slept with the HR manager to get the job." "Some say she's David Adams' side chic." "She's just another gold-digging Adja girl." Emily's heart ached, but she kept her chin up. She wouldn't let them see her hurt. Later, in the elevator, a woman in a red suit whispered to a colleague, "Maybe I should find a billionaire, too. Clearly, competence isn't needed anymore." Emily's hands clenched around her bag, but she said nothing. She remembered her mother's words, "Let your work be your loudest voice." When she reached David's office, Michael Brown greeted her with a warm nod. "Ignore the noise, Miss Emily. They bark because they're afraid." Emily smiled gratefully, but the sting of humiliation was hard to shake. Elsewhere in the office, Vanessa Clark watched the commotion with a satisfied smirk. Her plan was working. The whispers were spreading like wildfire, and soon Emily would be so humiliated she'd run back to her small flat in Adja. But Vanessa had miscalculated. By lunchtime, David had heard every whisper, every fabricated story. His patience had snapped. At 2 p.m., a company-wide emergency meeting was called. The entire staff gathered in the grand boardroom, the air thick with anticipation. Vanessa sat confidently, believing Emily was about to be dismissed. But when David Adams entered, his expression was carved in stone. His commanding presence silenced the room. "Good afternoon," he began, his voice calm but piercing. "It has come to my attention that false rumors and baseless gossip have polluted this company's atmosphere." He paused, his gaze sweeping the room, landing briefly on Vanessa, whose smirk was starting to falter. David continued, "Let me make this clear. Emily Johnson, my personal secretary, is not here because of scandalous favors or hidden agendas. She is here because of her character, her integrity, and because she represents values this company should aspire to. The room was dead silent. She gave my grandfather her last money, treated him with respect when none of you would, and did it without knowing his identity, David said, his voice rising. Meanwhile, some of you, who should lead by example, have shown arrogance and cruelty. Vanessa's face was turning pale. If I hear one more word, one more whisper about Emily that isn't work-related, the person responsible will be dismissed immediately, David declared. This is not a playground for classists and bullies. It is a company built on dignity. The staff sat frozen. Vanessa's confidence crumbled. For the first time, she realized David wasn't indifferent anymore. He was protecting Emily. Later that day, Emily sat quietly in her office space, working diligently. Michael brought her a coffee with a small grin. "I've never seen the office this quiet," he said. Emily smiled softly but said nothing. Her heart was full. David's defense wasn't just professional, it was personal. No one had ever stood up for her like that before. Across the building, Vanessa stormed into David's office, slamming the door behind her. "How dare you embarrass me like that, Leonard?" she snapped. David didn't look up from his laptop. "Watch your tone, Vanessa. You've always known people expect us to be together. Do you know what this does to my image?" David finally looked up, his gaze cold. "You built an image that never existed. We were never together, Vanessa." Her lips trembled. "You're choosing her over me?" "I'm choosing a character over ego," David said, standing up. "And I don't belong to anyone." Vanessa's world shattered in that moment. The man she had spent years orbiting had just shut her out completely. As she left the office, her mind was already spinning with a new plan. If she couldn't win David's heart, she would destroy Emily's reputation, and this time she would play dirtier than ever before. But Emily had no idea a new storm was brewing. All she knew was that for once in her life, someone had stood up for her, and it was changing her heart in ways she couldn't explain. The atmosphere at Adams' Lux Group Towers had shifted. The whispers had died down after David Adams' public defense of Emily Johnson, but inside the office walls a new curiosity brewed. Who was this girl that had softened the cold-hearted CEO? For Emily, life had become a delicate balance. She poured herself into her work, determined to prove her worth beyond David's defense. She kept to herself, quietly efficient, but every so often she would catch David watching her, his gaze thoughtful, almost searching. One evening, as the office emptied out, David lingered by his glass-walled office, watching Emily pack her bag. "Emily," he called, his voice casual but laced with something deeper. She looked up, startled. "Yes, sir?" He smiled, shaking his head. "Stop calling me sir. It's David." Emily smiled back nervously. The formality was her shield, but she lowered it slightly. "All right, David." He walked towards her, hands in his pockets, his steps unhurried. "Are you hungry?" Emily's brows furrowed. "Sir, I mean David, it's late. You should go home." David chuckled. "I will, but I'd like you to join me for dinner first." Emily's heart pounded. "Dinner?" "Yes. Not as my secretary, but as the woman who changed my grandfather's life, and, if I'm honest, mine too." The office lights reflected in his eyes, making them softer than Emily had ever seen them. "I don't know if I can," she whispered. "This is too much. You're David Adams, and I'm just—" "Just what?" David interrupted gently. "A girl who gave my grandfather her last money. A girl who stood tall when the world mocked her. Emily, status is just a number. Character's rare." Emily's defenses began to crack. For so long she had built walls to protect herself from disappointment, from being looked down on. But with David, those walls felt unnecessary. "All right," she said softly. "Dinner." Meanwhile, in her luxurious penthouse, Vanessa Clark fumed as she scrolled through her phone. Pictures of David and Emily leaving the office together were already circulating. The headlines mocked her. "David Adams, mystery girl, more than a secretary?" Her hands trembled. She had spent years crafting her image beside David, attending galas, whispering into Margaret Adams' ears, feeding the illusion of a relationship. But now this nobody was shattering her carefully built dream. Vanessa knew Margaret Adams, David's mother, wouldn't sit quietly either. Without wasting time, Vanessa dialed Margaret. "Honey, Margaret," she said sweetly, her tone laced with false concern. "I thought you should know. David has fallen into a trap." Margaret's cold voice replied, "Explain." "She's a girl from Aja. She pretends to be humble, but she's after the Adams fortune. She's manipulating Edward and now David. You need to return." A heavy silence followed. "I'll be on the next flight," Margaret said coldly. Vanessa smiled. Her plan was working. If anyone could get rid of Emily, it was Margaret Adams. Later that evening, Emily found herself sitting across from David at Skyview Lounge, Echo Hotel, overlooking Lagos' sparkling night skyline. The restaurant was a world of soft candlelights and murmured conversations, far removed from her life in Aja. She felt out of place in her simple Ankara dress, but David's presence was reassuring. "Tell me about your dreams," he asked gently. Emily hesitated. No one had ever asked her that before. "I want to own a small boutique someday," she said shyly. "Nothing fancy. Just a place where people are treated with dignity, no matter how they look." David smiled, his gaze softening. "That's a beautiful dream, and I'll help you build it." Emily's eyes widened. "No, I don't want handouts." David chuckled. "Not a handout. A partnership. You invest your heart. I'll invest my capital." Emily laughed nervously, but felt her heart flutter. There was something disarming about David, the way he looked past her appearance and saw the fire inside. As their laughter faded into a comfortable silence, Emily realized something. David Adams wasn't just a powerful CEO. He was a man who had learned to value kindness, and somehow, in a whirlwind of fate, he had seen hers. But while their bond deepened, a storm was brewing across the Atlantic. Margaret Adams had landed in Lagos, and she was coming to fix her son's mistake. Emily had no idea that the next time she entered the Adams estate, it wouldn't be Vanessa who would challenge her, but a woman whose disapproval could shatter her entire world. The next morning, the atmosphere in the Adams estate shifted. The arrival of Margaret Adams was like a cold wind sweeping through the mansion. Dressed in an elegant navy blue dress suit, her diamond-studded brooch sparkling, Margaret's presence commanded respect and fear. Her reputation was legendary. Known for her sharp tongue and ruthless standards, she was the woman who built the Adams family's image in high society. To her, legacy was everything. And now she believed that legacy was under threat by a nobody named Emily Johnson. David stood calmly in his office as his mother's voice sliced through the phone speaker. "I've seen the headlines, David," she said icily. "You are tarnishing our family name. I expect you to fix this immediately." "There's nothing to fix, Mother," David replied, his tone even. "Oh, really?" Margaret's tone sharpened. "Then explain why I had to cut my London trip short because of some boutique girl scandal. Her name is Emily, and she's not a scandal." Margaret's silence was deafening. "Then I'll see her myself." Later that day, Emily was helping Edward Adams arrange books in the estate's library when Margaret entered, her heels clicking with purpose. "Emily Johnson," she said, her voice calm but sharp as a blade. Emily stood up, heart pounding, but she greeted Margaret with the same quiet dignity she had shown everyone else. "Good afternoon, ma'am." Margaret's eyes scanned her, dissecting her simple Ankara skirt, plain blouse, and low-cost flats. She didn't hide her disapproval. "Walk with me," Margaret commanded. They strolled through the vast estate gardens. The silence was tense, every step filled with unspoken judgments. "I believe in honesty, Emily," Margaret began. "So I'll be blunt. I don't know what your intentions are, but you will never marry my son." Emily's heart clenched, but she kept her gaze forward. "You see," Margaret continued, "David belongs to a world of power, class, and legacy. You, on the other hand, come from Aja." The last word dripped with condescension. "I raised David to marry a woman of equal status, someone who understands the weight of the Adams name. You are not that woman." They stopped under a large baobab tree, its roots sprawling across the manicured lawn. "I will give you N5 million, Margaret said, pulling out a checkbook. "Take this and walk away from my son forever. Use it to start your boutique, your dream, whatever you want. But you will not be part of this family." Emily's hands trembled as she looked at the check. 5 million Naira, more money than she had ever seen. But she remembered her mother's words, echoing like a whisper in her heart. What you compromise to get, you will eventually lose. But what you build with dignity, no one can take from you. With tears in her eyes, Emily took the check, looked Margaret straight in the eye, and tore it in half. "I love your son, ma'am," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "But I will never take money to walk away from him. I am not a gold digger. I don't want your wealth. I only want the freedom to love, and to be loved with respect." Margaret's face remained stoic, but her eyes flickered, as if Emily's unexpected dignity had chipped a crack into her cold exterior. Without another word, Margaret turned and walked back into the mansion. Emily stood under the tree, her heart pounding, unsure if she had just sealed her fate or earned her respect. That evening, David found Emily sitting quietly in the estate garden, staring at the stars. "You met my mother," he said softly, sitting beside her. Emily nodded. "She offered me N5 million to leave you." David sighed, a mixture of frustration and admiration filling his voice. "I'm guessing you refused." I tore the check in half. David's gaze softened, a small smile tugging at his lips. "You are the bravest woman I've ever met." Emily's eyes welled up. "I don't know if it was brave. It just felt right." David gently cupped her face, his thumb brushing away a stray tear. "It was brave. And it was you." For a moment the world was still. In that quiet, under the Lagos night sky, something shifted between them, a bond deeper than attraction. It was respect. It was admiration. It was real. But while they shared this quiet victory, Vanessa Clark wasn't done. Enraged by Emily's resilience, she devised a final, ruthless plan. If kindness couldn't break Emily, she would tarnish her integrity. And this time, Vanessa would make sure Emily was disgraced beyond repair. The stage was set for Vanessa's most vicious move yet. In the days following Margaret's confrontation with Emily Johnson, the atmosphere at the Adams estate simmered with uneasy silence. Though Margaret had not said another word about Emily, her disapproving glances spoke volumes. But while Emily continued to carry herself with quiet dignity, Vanessa Clark was seething. Her position at Adams' Lux Group was slipping through her fingers. Every plan to humiliate Emily had failed. The whispers at the office had died down, and David's public defense had only elevated Emily's standing. The girl from Aja was no longer invisible. But Vanessa had one last card. If she couldn't ruin Emily's image with rumors, she would destroy her with evidence. Manufactured evidence that would leave no room for defense. One late evening, while the estate was quiet, Vanessa bribed a housemaid to gain access to the family's private jewelry vault. Inside, displayed in a glass casing, sat the Adams sapphire necklace, a priceless piece of heritage, known publicly as the Ocean Front. It was worth over $30 million. Stealing it would be national news. Vanessa carefully slipped the necklace into her purse, her pulse racing. She wasn't going to steal it. No, she was going to frame Emily. The next morning, as Emily arrived at Adams' Lux Group Towers, her heart was light. She was beginning to feel like she belonged, not to the riches or the glamour, but to a life where she could build something meaningful. She didn't know that her kindness was about to be weaponized against her. At noon, chaos erupted. Security guards stormed into the office. Michael Brown, David's PA, approached Emily with a grim expression. "Emily, we need to search your office." "Why?" Emily asked, confused. Before he could answer, two guards entered and began opening drawers and cabinets. Within moments, one of them pulled out a small velvet box from her desk. Michael's face paled. The guard opened the box, revealing the Ocean Front sapphire necklace. The room spun around Emily. What is this?" she stammered, her hands trembling. "I'm sorry, Miss Emily," the head of security said gravely. "This necklace has been reported missing. We'll need you to come with us." The office was a hive of murmurs. Vanessa stood at a distance, pretending to be horrified, while secretly savoring the scandal she had created. Emily's legs felt weak. She looked around, seeing familiar faces avert their eyes. The whispers, the judgment. All the walls she had built with her integrity were collapsing. At the Adams estate, Margaret Adams sat in the grand living room when the news arrived. "I warned you," she said coldly to David. "She's a thief." David's jaw tightened, his fists clenched. "Emily is not a thief." But the evidence was damning. Security had found the necklace in her office. The media caught wind of it within hours. Headlines exploded. David Adams' secretary caught in billionaire heist scandal. From boutique girl to jewel thief. Emily, humiliated and heartbroken, packed her few belongings. Despite David and Edward's attempts to stop her, she chose to leave the estate quietly. "I can't stay here, David," she said, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Not when everyone looks at me like I'm guilty." David's heart broke as he watched her walk away. Edward placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "Let her go for now. But do not sit still. Find the truth." Emily returned to her modest flat in Aja, feeling like her entire world had crumbled. She had fought so hard to preserve her dignity, but now the stain of disgrace clung to her like a shadow. She sat in the silence, wondering if integrity was enough in a world where lies could be made to look like truth. But David Adams was not a man to let injustice rest. He immediately ordered a full investigation. He reviewed security footage, questioned staff, and scoured every inch of evidence. Hours turned into days until finally he found it. A grainy but clear security clip showing Vanessa Clark sneaking into the jewelry vault late at night, slipping the necklace into her purse. David's expression turned from cold to ice. Meanwhile, Vanessa was celebrating in her apartment. She had finally rid herself of Emily, or so she thought. She didn't know that David had already scheduled a live press conference at Skyview Lounge, Echo Hotel. And when the truth came out, Vanessa's carefully constructed world was going to collapse in front of the entire nation. The media frenzy had reached a fever pitch. Every gossip blog, TV station, and social feed in Nigeria was ablaze with one scandalous headline. Emily Johnson, from a boutique girl to billionaire thief. In her Aja apartment, Emily sat on her small mattress, staring blankly at the screen. She had turned off her phone, avoided the internet, but the noise found its way through every crack. The shame was suffocating. She hadn't stolen anything. She had done nothing wrong. But right now, no one cared about the truth. No one, except David Adams. At the Adams estate, David's fury was a quiet, dangerous storm. The security footage he had uncovered was irrefutable. Vanessa Clark, the woman who had schemed for years, had been caught red-handed, sneaking into the jewelry vault and planting the stolen necklace in Emily's office. "I'm done with subtlety," David said coldly to his PA, Michael Brown. "Call every major network. We're doing this publicly." The following day, the Skyview Lounge at Echo Hotel and Suites was transformed into a media battlefield. Cameras flashed. Reporters jostled for position. Live broadcasts were rolling across every major channel. The scandal had drawn massive attention. Now David Adams was about to flip the narrative. As David stepped onto the podium, the room fell into an eager hush. "Good afternoon," he began, his voice calm but razor-sharp. "I stand here today not as a CEO, but as a man who refuses to let injustice triumph." The screen behind him lit up with surveillance footage. The audience gasped as Vanessa Clark appeared on screen, clearly seen slipping the sapphire necklace into her purse, then later into Emily's office drawer. The murmurs grew louder. David continued. "Miss Emily Johnson has been falsely accused, publicly shamed and humiliated because of jealousy and manipulation. But the truth always finds its way." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "Vanessa Clark has betrayed not just my family, but the integrity of Adams' Lux Group." Gasps echoed through the hall as Vanessa, who had been watching from the shadows of the event, was spotted by the cameras. Security closed in on her. "Vanessa Clark, you're under arrest for theft, corporate sabotage, and defamation," an officer announced. "No! This is a setup!" Vanessa shrieked as the officers handcuffed her. "David, you can't do this to me. I did it because I love you." David's gaze was cold, devoid of sympathy. "You don't know what love is, Vanessa. You only love power." As she was dragged away, her public downfall was broadcasted live across the nation. Back in her small apartment, Emily watched the live stream, tears rolling down her cheeks. The truth had finally surfaced. Her name had been cleared. But what Emily didn't expect was the next part. David wasn't done. With the camera still rolling, David continued. "Emily Johnson is not just a boutique assistant or a secretary. She is a woman of rare integrity, a woman who gave my grandfather her last money when she thought he was just a poor old man." He paused, his next words stealing the breath from the room. "And today, I want the world to know she is the woman I love." Reporters exploded with questions, but David's gaze was fixed, his voice steady. "She is the only woman I want beside me, not because of her looks or status, but because of her heart." The clip went viral within minutes. The narrative shifted. Headlines now screamed, "Emily Johnson, a modern Cinderella? David Adams declares love for his humble heroine. From betrayal to redemption, Emily Johnson's dignity triumphs." At the Adams estate that evening, Margaret Adams sat in reflective silence. She had watched the entire press conference. For the first time, she saw Emily not through the lens of class, but through the undeniable power of character. Without a word, she instructed her driver, "Take me to Emily Johnson's residence." When Emily opened her door that night, she froze. Standing in her modest living space was Margaret Adams, regal as ever, but her eyes were no longer cold. "I came to make peace," Margaret said calmly. "I judged you harshly, Emily. I believed rumors over character. I was wrong." Emily stood stunned, unsure of what to say. "I would be honored," Margaret continued, "if you would allow me to be a part of your life." Tears welled in Emily's eyes. She had fought battles no one saw, carried burdens silently, and now, standing in her humble apartment, the walls of status and class had finally crumbled. She nodded, a soft smile spreading across her face. "I would like that, ma'am." Margaret's lips curved into a rare, genuine smile. "Call me Margaret." At that moment, Emily realized the greatest victory wasn't the public's applause, but the quiet acceptance that comes when dignity speaks louder than wealth. But while apologies were made and bridges were built, one thing remained. David Adams was waiting for Emily to take a chance on love. The days following Vanessa's downfall were a whirlwind. The media had shifted its narrative, hailing Emily Johnson as a symbol of humility and integrity in a world obsessed with status. But for Emily, life remained simple. She still woke up in her modest Aja apartment, still wore her neatly ironed Ankara skirts, and still believed that kindness was her greatest possession. What she didn't know was that David Adams was planning something that would change her life forever. One serene evening, Emily received an unexpected visitor. A chauffeur, dressed in Adams Lux Group's signature colors, knocked on her door with a polite smile. "Miss Emily Johnson, Mr. David Adams requests your presence at Skyview Lounge, Echo Hotel, for a private dinner." Emily's heart skipped. She knew David. He wasn't a man of random gestures. If he had called her, it meant something. That night, the Skyview Lounge was transformed into a world of candlelit elegance. The panoramic view of Lagos Island glittered in the background, but David's gaze was fixed only on Emily as she entered. Dressed in a simple yet elegant ivory dress, a gift from Edward Adams, who insisted, "Simplicity fits you like a crown," Emily approached nervously. "You called me," she said softly. David stood, his tailored black suit sharp, yet his smile was disarmingly warm. "Yes, I've been waiting." He led her to the center of the lounge, where a single table stood under a cascading chandelier of crystal lights. As dinner ended, David stood, took a deep breath, and did something that left Emily breathless. He got down on one knee. The entire lounge seemed to fall into a reverent silence. "Emily Johnson," David began, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. "From the day you gave my grandfather your last naira, you didn't just give away money. You gave away kindness, dignity, and compassion, without knowing who we were." Emily's eyes filled with tears as he continued. "You have faced judgment, mockery, and betrayal, yet you stood tall with grace. You showed me that love isn't about appearances, it's about character." He opened a small velvet box, revealing a breathtaking diamond ring, but the sparkle was nothing compared to the sincerity in David's eyes. "Emily, will you marry me? Not as David Adams, the CEO, but as the man whose heart you changed forever." Tears slid down Emily's cheeks as she whispered, "Yes." The lounge erupted in applause. The moment was captured by the few media outlets present, and within minutes, headlines flooded the internet. "David Adams engaged to Emily Johnson, the modern-day Cinderella. From boutique girl to billionaire's bride. Integrity triumphs, Emily's fairytale engagement." The wedding day. Lagos had never seen anything like it. The Cathedral Church of Christ, Marina, was adorned with cascading white roses, and gold-trimmed arches. The guest list read like a who's who of Nigeria's elite. Politicians, business moguls, and celebrities gathered to witness the union of two worlds. But amidst all the grandeur, the moment that silenced the entire city was when Emily stepped out of her bridal car. Dressed in a custom-made couture gown, intricately designed with pearls and diamonds, Emily was a vision. A delicate tiara rested on her head, not as a symbol of wealth, but as a quiet crown of dignity earned. The same girl who was once ridiculed for not belonging was now walking down the aisle, her steps slow, graceful, and unburdened. At the altar stood David, his eyes locked on hers, his smile carrying the weight of every promise he was about to make. As the priest led the vows, Edward Adams stepped forward with a small antique box. Inside lay a golden brooch encrusted with sapphires, the Adams family heirloom, passed down through generations. "This," Edward said, pinning it gently onto Emily's gown, "belongs to the woman who carries our family's legacy with grace. Today, that woman is you." Tears blurred Emily's vision as she whispered, "Thank you." At the grand reception in the Civic Center of Victoria Island, the moment everyone talked about wasn't the A-list guests or the luxury decor. It was David's personal gift to Emily. As the ballroom lights dimmed, David took Emily's hand, leading her to the center of the dance floor. A staff member presented a velvet box, which David opened to reveal the ocean front, the very same sapphire diamond necklace that had once been used to frame her. But now it was hers by honor, not scandal. "This necklace," David said, fastening it around her neck, "was once a weapon used against you. Today it's a symbol of your victory." The crowd erupted in applause. Even Margaret Adams, who once opposed the union, stood with a proud smile. Among the sea of faces, Susan Blake, the former boutique manager, stood in stunned silence, watching the girl she once fired now becoming the most respected woman in high society. Susan remembered Edward's words that day in the boutique. "Kindness is more valuable than expensive clothes." Now those words echoed louder than ever. Vanessa, watching from a prison television screen, could only stare in bitter silence as Emily's fairy tale unfolded, knowing she had destroyed herself with her own arrogance. As Emily and David shared their first dance beneath the glittering chandeliers, Edward Adams stood to the side, his heart full of pride. He leaned towards Margaret and whispered, "Good things happen to good people." Margaret nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. Emily Johnson had not only changed their family, she had built a dynasty of kindness.